Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Wednesday. It's July 7th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. And the big picture, this is just a range day. You can see we had strong resistance up here around 43.52 or 53 or so. And most of the support was right down in around this 43.28, 43.30 range. But we did drop on down here a little bit. Below the overnight lows, which are right in here. But we quickly, you can see how strongly we reversed out of there. That must have been a strong buy point because we rallied out of there, and then we slowly traded higher most of the rest of the morning until we hit this resistance up here. And we just never could push through that. Prices wouldn't really sell off. They'd back up a little bit and make another run at it, and prices just never were able to push through. So you can see the midpoint is this blue line here, and you can see where prices played off both sides of that all day. So mostly off the upper side of it. So I believe this to be just a large range here, and but there is some movement here. So at least we're getting some movement. Really by 11 o'clock the day was done. But there's a few trades in here. There's a couple of green ones, but there's a few shorts up here. Believe it or not, you would think after trading up strongly, you'd be looking for longs up here. But prices were mostly just backing off here, and you weren't really getting any good setups to go long on. So it was a little risky going long up here. And I think you were better served trying to find some shorts and so forth. I kept hoping it would sell off, but it never did. So anyway, we'll back out. We'll go through the trades. Not a lot of them, so it won't take long. Early on, we had this channel working up right here, but we had a break and a couple legs up and then a correction. But really, we just kind of folded over into this yellow channel that was a little flatter. And we finally had a break of that here. You would expect that we'd make a retest, but it didn't come until we had a large sell-off. And you can see we still made a retest with a new high. That still qualifies. It's just a little odd to see it sell off that strongly. And I just think that's because it's a range day, really, in the big picture. So, but we folded over into this flatter yellow channel. And you could almost trade this both ways. I'd be a little hesitant since the EMA is pointing mostly up here. I'd be looking for longs mostly. But notice that we had this, we were moving across here. We had this resistance here, and we tested it several times. I'm not sure why I marked that right there. There's no trade there. I don't know if I put it in the wrong spot or what, but there's no trade right there. So I don't know why I put that there. It's just congestion. Sometimes every now and then I put it in the wrong spot and I don't notice it till later, but I don't know why I had that there. So just disregard that arrow. There's no long there. We just went into congestion and couldn't push. And you don't want to go long right into, even though that works, you wouldn't want to go long right into that resistance right there. It's just too much overhead resistance. And this is just, we're really just going sideways here. Turns out there's the yellow channel, but early on it just looks like we're pushing to make that new high, and then it looks like we're going to sell off. But you can clearly see that the EMA is still pointing up. We went a little flat there just momentarily, and then it's back up again. So, but we had a failed breakout, but we didn't really get a lower high that you could go short off of. Then we bounced again here, and again, no setup. But finally, we're moving up here, and you get a first entry, and then even though it's an inside bar, it's still a correction. So that's the same thing as a second entry short, but better than that, this is a new high, and you get a first entry, and then you pull back, and you get a second entry long here. And that's a really nice signal bar that actually broke lower first and then turns up. I like going long there on the fact that this is second entry, but it's also a failed second entry short in a way as well. So you can look at it both ways. So I like that, just to see prices push for probably another leg up to make a new high. And that's what we do here. We actually push up and make that one more leg up, and then we find resistance, then we sell off. It's tempting to go short there, but this is all above the EMA. It's a little sideways. Yeah, you can see the resistance there, but I think it's too early to risk a short at this point. Even though that works out nicely, that's congestion. There is a little bit of a trap there. It is a second entry short, but it's right into the EMA, and the EMA is still pointing up, and this yellow channel still appears to be in play. So looking back at it, I really think that oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I really think the yellow channel was more like that, and this is a break and 2 legs up to a new high, and then one more push, and then we sold off. That's the way I think it played out. I was looking at it a little differently. It still fits right here like this, although it never really plays through. So in the end, I like it much better playing it like that right there. And you can clearly see that by playing it that way, you get the break here, 2 measured legs up, and those are 2 measured legs, basically to the tick, maybe even a tick higher, and then it sells off. So in the end, that's how I think it played out. Either way you played it, I think you're okay. There's not much difference either way. This other blue line is just a measured move, and I don't think you want to play that one the way it turns out there. I just think this is a reversal. And we turn down. And notice you got a first entry and then a second entry that fails. And when prices broke below that bar, I like going short. Probably going to have some trap longs. Comes back and you try to test it again, and then you get a lower high here. Basically, you got this working up, but the trend line up here, which you really don't have that confirmed, but when all 3 of those bars turn down off of it, and then you make this lower high, it pushes through the EMA, pulls back. I'd rather see that as a failed second entry long, but technically this is a lower high right here. So there's still plenty of room back down here to the lows, and so I like that one. And when it broke higher right there above that bullish bar, I guarantee they trapped the longs, and that's all they were doing was trying to push it lower. This thing runs down. It looks like we get an overshoot here. It's hard to say. I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a 2-tiered channel like that. Doesn't really matter. Although if you look at it like this, like an overshoot, it would lead you to say, hey, we're probably going to get a break pretty soon, which we do. And unfortunately, you just get a first entry. It's a pretty nice signal bar, but it's just too dangerous on a first entry right there, especially if you draw your little short-term trend line. I mean, it's just too big a chance it breaks lower and pushes up one more time, and it takes on down. So I don't like going short there as much as I wanted to. I just don't think it's worth risking, because that could be an overshoot too, and if so, prices could just reverse, and we may not even go lower. But it ends up running down really strongly. That would have been a nice entry, but I just don't think you want to risk it. And of course, look how strongly that's what rejection looks like. Man, those prices bounced out of there so strongly. You come back with a first entry, you come back with a second entry, and it fails almost instantly right off the EMA and goes higher. That's what a good reversal looks like, and that thing pops up. Unfortunately, you don't get a long runner. It comes back, but it gives you another opportunity, and this time you would have got a runner. Notice that you get a new swing low right here, and then you get a first entry, second entry again that breaks lower and fails and goes out the upside. I don't know if I'd want to go long way up here above that bar. 16 ticks. It's still a good setup, but really it breaks lower first and then goes above this bar, and that's where you'd really want to go long right there. Yeah, it's a little close to that resistance, but you could have actually let it break higher and left it back a tick or so and probably got filled still and had enough room to get out. But I just like going along there, period, because it looks like we're about to reverse. The key is, do you have enough room to get out before that trend line? And that's another reason I'd be a little leery about going long right there because it's right into that trend line. I would at least want it to push through and come back and prove that we're going higher, and it does. But by that time, and you might have looked at that as a failure because this is so close to being a double bottom, and finally you get a little higher low here. So that could be a first entry, second entry. So, but I just didn't like this. It was down and then up, and even though this bar is slightly higher than this one, it just looks like an up-down bar. And a lot of times those will not go anywhere. But you may take that trade. You still don't know that we might not turn back down, but that's a really big overshoot of this green channel. And we really never confirmed this trend line. It never held a third time. So I think you're fine to look to go longer here. And I actually played this yellow channel first and didn't find the green, or the blue channel in there until really we made another eye up here. It really just looked like this was the channel working up, and it could have been. They both end up playing out, but notice you get the break of the yellow one and a new high, and then we get a pretty nice correction, or a bigger correction. So I think they both played out, so it doesn't really matter how you see it. Unfortunately, again, you don't get a good entry here. You could look at that as 2 legs back, but that's not a very good signal bar, and it makes the low right here. It's a fairly small bar and fairly small risk, but I just don't think you can take that trade. We run up to the new high, and notice you get a first entry and then a second entry. It fails, and that's probably going to trap some people. With that big bar that breaks higher and goes a few ticks, if it turns lower there, that's not a good sign, especially since it's right off a trend line right there, as you can see. Coming right through there. And that does confirm the trend line. So first entry, second entry. And we did push through the EMA. Even though that didn't close on the other side, we still pushed through. And when that next bar, when they're, yeah, you'd have to enter before this completed, but you can clearly see when by the time that closed, I had pretty good faith. I had a pretty good feeling that we're going lower there. And of course, now we come up a little short. We get the break, and I like going short here because technically that still looks like 2 legs down. You do have that break higher right there, but it's just a tick or so. So on a bigger picture, this still looks like a failure. And so if it breaks lower, we're probably going to at least try to make a new low there. So if you don't have room to scalp out before that low right there, what I would do was let it break lower and then drop a limit order, which you could have gotten at least a couple of ticks back into this bar, giving you plenty of room. But since it's a trout, you'd be fine probably going short 1 tick below that green bar when it broke lower. Runs on down. And we just go sideways here. But you did get a break of this 2-tier channel, new low. And prices didn't rally out of there. But you can clearly see them bouncing along that trend line. They're kind of stuck between a trend line and the EMA before they push through. Pull back. You get a first entry. Then you get a second entry that fails and closes above that midline. You can clearly see the channel in there now. I like going long there when it, again, no runner because we hit the trend. You don't have a lot of room back to the trend channel. You got enough to scalp out, but that's about it. And then this is where we find the resistance. But notice that eye, you can try to go higher once, then you try to go higher twice. So you got to double test there. But not only that, this is a double top. And so first entry, second entry. And this looks a lot like this setup right here. It looks very similar to that. So I like going short right there, assuming that we're probably going to run to the other side of the channel, at least back to the EMA. So you may let this break lower and give yourself a little more room with a limit order. I know you could have gotten, I don't know if you'd have gotten filled on this on a limit order. Honestly, I like just using a stop right there after those. I mean, really, you try to go higher once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. But you tested this up here twice. I made a triple top. And so you're probably going to head back to the other side of the channel. And actually, you get a break of it right here. And unfortunately, you just get a first entry short. and it actually breaks lower and turns up. It's so tempting to go long there, uh, especially when you're not getting a lot of trades on days like this. But I just think it's too risky. You know you're probably going higher, but it could break higher there and turn right back down again, and then go higher. But then you get another pattern almost just like this again, and another triple test, another night signal bar. The signal bar is even better on this one, so I really like this one. And it's good for a quick scalp, nothing more. And then we're just sideways after that. And there's no setup for this short here, unfortunately. And then you don't really, there would have been a long here, but it's, you know, it's well after 3 o'clock now. So it's just too late. We're getting closer to 4 o'clock there. And you can see how the volume really slowed down late in the afternoon there. So I think people are, even though we're, you know, you can pretty much trade up to 3 o'clock now, not much happens after that, because you can see that 3 o'clock is where it turns, the color turns darker there. And we only had, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bars after that till it closed. Not much. So not much going on there in that last hour. And that still could be the summer, the slow summer part, and, you know, the holiday, right? Still, you know, just coming back from the holiday, and a lot of people might have taken the whole week off, and so it's just it's not much happening late now. I mean, really, from 2 o'clock on, there's not much. I mean, there's just nothing there. You got one trade opportunity that I see, and this one is close to being green. You could almost, you know, argue for it to be green. So, but the key is, look how many times we've turned down off that resistance, and you got a second entry short there, because that is a new low. So first entry, second entry, and you got the failed second entry long. It's just almost a repeat pattern. And you got a really nice signal bar on that one too. So that's about it for today. This took a little longer than I thought it would without any more trades in that. But there's a lot of movement here, and that's the good thing. At least we're getting some movement now. So if you can catch a few of these trades, if you catch the right one, you can catch a runner, and you can get some swing trades going. But this was a classic rejection of prices down here at this low. Look how we rocketed straight out of there, straight up through the EMA, came back and tested it twice, took off. And at this point, I think people were probably a little worried about this possible trend line coming down through here. So they were a little hesitant to go long right into it. But once we push through, you can see it takes off again. So anyway, that's what I saw today. Believe it or not, tomorrow's Thursday and another week has gone by. This was a short week, though, due to the holiday on Monday. So, but we'll be back again to do it tomorrow and wrap up our week. No chart lessons on Friday. So anyway, I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next